confronted her today. I've never seen someone implode like this. A heads up, I began writing this the day it happened and I'm not rewriting it, so if some of my feelings don't reflect exactly what my comments were saying in the last couple of days, that's why. I've got some work to do today, so I might not respond to anything for quite some time. I never want to go through anything like this ever again. This was the single most difficult thing I've ever had to do, and I'm twitching like a tweaker every so often now. She left for either work or Chris's today, not really sure where she went, but she was gone. Tried to check her location and either she turned off locations or my phone was giving me issues. I didn't have the means to serve her, that comes later this week, but I had to confront her before she realized what I was doing so she wouldn't have any more time to formulate some working lies. Heard my garage door opening and turned on the camera on. She comes in completely oblivious. I tell her she ought to sit down because we've got to talk. Deer in the headlights look, but she sits down and asks me what's wrong. I ask, why don't you tell me? She plays dumb, but I see she knows she's been found out. She asks me again what's wrong. I ask her what's really up with Chris. She says nothing, she hasn't heard from him. I redirect and decide to not confront her as directly and tell her that I'm uncomfortable with her working with him and that it's not something I can get past. She's 100% instantly agreeable and asks me very nervously why I changed my mind so quick and why I'm acting the way I am. I just shake my head and say something like, I wanted to be understanding about it, but I got weird vibes from him and I'd prefer they wouldn't talk. She insists that he doesn't mean anything to her anymore, that she was just happy to see the book get made. I told her that he basically stole from her and she's being way too understanding about that fact. That she ought to sue him over it, and she agrees with me. By now she's probably thinking she got out of this and is going to break it off with Chris the minute she gets a second to do so. But then I tell her the whole thing has really stressed me out and I'm gonna take next week out of work. I tell her that I talked with my ex and she agreed to keep my son that weekend so I could go to Vegas with her. That's why I was talking to my ex for so long the other day, working out the details of her taking my son, or at least that's what I'd have her think. Deadpan stare. I start talking about how COVID has shut down a lot of stuff and I'm not even sure what's open in Vegas. She cuts me off and tells me that it was actually canceled today. The conversation from here on goes like this. Paraphrased of course. Me, it got canceled last month. Her, no. He told us today because he wasn't sure whether or not it was off until today. Me, I know it got canceled last month. Her, what are you doing? Why are you telling me you want to go and then telling me it's canceled? I don't get what you're doing. Me, it was canceled last month. What were you gonna do if I didn't ask about it? Her, you're freaking me out. It was cancelled today.
Me, what were you going to doing?
Her, what are you accusing me of? Me, how long have you and Chris been back together? Her, we haven't done anything. Did he tell you we were? Me, don't lie to me. I don't want read off everything he texted. It almost made me throw up doing it the first time. I can't believe you do this. Her, I love you. I'm sorry, he's been texting me a lot lately and saying a lot of messed up stuff and I don't know how to deal with it. I wanted to tell you this, but I was afraid you'd do what you're doing now. I was just hoping he'd stop on his own. Me, you didn't see him for 8 years and 20 minutes after he got off the plane you had fun time with him. Her, what plane? What are you reading?
Me, he lives on. You wanna stop this? Just admit what you did, so we can move forward with this. Why did you tell me he lived in?
Her, did he say something to you? He lies constantly. It's part of the reason why we broke up. I told you that. I knew I shouldn't have responded to his messages. It's always drama with him. All his messages were fine, but he started with the missing me stuff again like always. I was going to tell you. Me, he wanted you to come home and kiss me after you were going down on him. I read your messages. I saw them in your email and in your texts. You're cheating on me and I want you out of this house today. Her, what? I'm not cheating on you. If you don't want him around, I'll tell him to get lost. But honey, I'm not cheating on you. Is that what he told you? He's lying. Me, stop it. I told you I went in your messages on your phone. You're going to get your stuff and you're going to go to your parents. I made copies of your emails and screenshots from your texts. I don't want to show them what you two say to each other, but if you're going to keep lying to my face, I will. We're done, go get your stuff. She tried even in the face of all that to play stupid and lie, But finally tired of it, I broke out my copies of their texts and handed them to her. She looked at them for 2 seconds and then broke down crying hard. Like I've never seen her this devastated by anything. I even felt bad for her for a little while. She said she was sorry, that it got out of hand and she wanted to put the brakes on it, but he had gotten possessive and was threatening to expose her if she ended it with him. I told her that none of that was in their text and that she's still lying to me. She was going to go off and spend the weekend with him.
She then told me it's done between them, and she'll make him go away. She won't ever talk to him again. I told her I don't care what she does, but I've been talking to a lawyer and the divorce papers will be ready soon. At this point she explodes, and repeats you've been talking to a lawyer, like 4 or 5 times, and honestly I was ready to call the cops, because she's closing in on me, and really screaming now. I tell her to calm down, that I have a camera going. She then continues to break down and not resemble anyone I've ever met before. Kept saying stuff like you just planned all this out. Smiling to my face, just planning this all out. Which every time she did I responded with the same. Well, look at what you've been planning, and smiling to my face while you're out doing.
I asked her why she'd do this to us, and at first she couldn't give me a straight answer. She tried to tell me it was meaningless fun time, so I responded with, oh, so you ruined us for no reason, then that's great. After a bit she sort of got quieter, and I don't know if she was being honest or just trying to hurt me, but apparently she really messed up with him in her eyes. She called him her soulmate and I nearly started breaking stuff. I asked her why she just didn't ditch me for him in the beginning. I would have understood then, and she says she just needed to get away from him because she knew how bad she'd look to her family if she brought him back around. Apparently they didn't like him either. She also said that she could never and can never actually be with him because her ex and daughter would fight her on this. So going back to him legitimately was never an option. She then said she was sorry and seemed to be in disbelief with how final I was with everything. She told me how much of a mistake it was, how much she would change and do whatever I wanted her to just to fix the situation. I told her no. She then told me weren't getting a divorce because she can make amends for this. I told her there was nothing she could do to earn my forgiveness. I will not forgive this ever, and somehow she had the gall to be shocked by this. I told her then I opened an account in another bank and moved half from the joint account into it this morning, and that the rest is hers. She can either get it herself or I can get it for her, but the account is getting closed. She just nodded along and said we'd probably both have to go to the bank together to close it. She went and started packing her clothes up, peacefully, crying a little and oddly enough making threats every so often that she had better not have anything missing. I let it roll off my shoulder and told her to take pics of how she left her things and daughter's things, so when she comes back she'll see I didn't touch anything. Her folks had been contacted and they're in disbelief. They're both surprised that Chris is even a factor in any of this and spent time apologizing to me, and soon after she was out of my house. The next day SDBX hit my phone with so many "I love you, I'm sorry, we can fix this" texts that I contemplated flushing my phone. I wanted to just turn it off, but my ex-wife had my son, so I needed it on just in case of an emergency or a change in plans when he was coming home. So I just started responding to her texts by sending screenshots of the worst parts of their conversation and saying nothing of my own. Ex returned with my son and brought dinner from my favorite Chinese place. I didn't give my son the exact reason when I told him, but he asked flat out whether she'd cheated because it was so sudden, and I told him he was right without elaborating. They stayed for a while before returning home, and I've just been kind of floating around the house trying to keep it together. It's like 2 or 3 days since I began writing this, and I'm off to the gym and then my lawyers. This thing is already way too long and things are updating so rapidly that I could be typing forever and never finish. My SDBX's ex-husband is going to come by and collect his daughter's things, and I'll explain to her the best I can that if she ever needs me I'm just a phone call away. I'm also contemplating telling her ex that she ran around with Chris on him as well, because she said many times he doesn't know. But maybe I won't, that accomplishes nothing really. Anyway, first fight has been fought and it looks like I'm winning as much as one can win given the circumstances. Part of me wants to confront Chris, but I'm smart enough that all that would be a waste of time and energy. Time better spent working or hitting the gym or finding some way to thank my ex-wife for being an absolute MVP in my corner through this. Anyway, that's all I got for now. Sorry if this is disjointed, but it's taken me a couple days to write, and of course developments keep happening.